Hey PC World fans, Adam here with fellow video professional Dan Masaoka, and we're here to talk about video editing laptops. Now I know there's a lot of content creators out there who do a lot of things other than video editing, but we're video editors.
We're video editors.
And we've been on the search for the best video editing laptop that we can find.
Yeah.
We did a video earlier this year kind of focusing on workstation laptops and comparing examples there. One of the takeaways from that video was that we wanted to look into gaming laptops. Throughout the year, one of the big trends that has cropped up in laptops has been companies taking their gaming laptops and realizing that a lot of professionals like us are using them and turning them into content creation laptops. The perfect example is here in front of me. I got the Acer Predator Triton 500, which then they spun off the Acer Concept D7. In almost every way, it is the same exact laptop.
Same layout,
Yeah, same layout, same ports, you know, literally the same physically, except for some key differences that help creative people like us take better advantage of it. So we're going to kind of walk through this, and kind of see, hey, is this something? Do we kind of like this trend? Are these gaming laptops still valuable?
I mean, I feel like the creative world in general, a lot of us have been saying, just give us a version of this that's more suited. So I guess the question is, does it really, they've answered that, I guess, and done it now. Does this solve all the problems?
Yeah, well, let me go over the specs. This Predator Triton 500 is configured with an 8750H and a 2060, which you can also get on the Concept D7, but both of them go up to a 9750H with an RTX 2080, which is actually what's in this one right now. So I can't necessarily do head-to-head benchmarks.
Not perfect apples to apples.
Yeah, because it's not perfect apple to apple, but let me go through some of the things that have kind of changed between the two. One of them is cosmetics. Obviously, this one is black. It has the nice gamer aesthetic with the RGB logos and the RGB keyboard. This one, they turned white. They took away that big Predator logo on the back, and it just says nice little Acer on the top. Also, the keyboard has only one static, warm, glowing color.
Which honestly, I think that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, me personally, I wouldn't feel weird going into a company with a gaming laptop and doing some video production.
No.
That wouldn't necessarily bug me. But I would say this one looks a little bit nicer.
But I also wouldn't say, like, I need to pay more for RGB.
No.
So there's also that. You're saving that money from doing RGB.
Yeah.
You're like, that's not necessary.
Some people like their RGB though,
I like it. Who doesn't like it? But I don't need it.
True. You definitely don't need it. Another one so moving on to one of the bigger things is the screens. So this one's configured with a 1080p high refresh rate screen, goes up to 144 hertz. But this one is configured with a 4K screen at 60. Which I myself really love editing at 4K.
You like 4K. I don't mind 1080 because at this size of a screen, I feel like it's going to be too small doing 4K anyway.
Which I will say these are both 15-inch.
Yeah. So at that point, I'm like 1080 is totally perfect for me.
And what do you feel about video editing on a high refresh rate monitor?
That, I don't think I need to edit on a high refresh rate monitor. The gamer in me would appreciate it.
Yeah.
But honestly, 60's fine.
Yeah.
60's fine.
60's fine. Yeah, I will say I thought that same way too until I took this one. This was my main workhorse at Computex this year. And the high refresh rate for video editing was actually pretty nice.
But what's different?
Every action you take is a lot more smoother, kind of moving around. It's not just for gaming. It's also in the small little details of navigating the OS and scrubbing playback and moving things like that. Definitely not a necessity. Definitely not a necessity. But I was surprised to be like, oh wow, okay.
And if you had to choose between 4K versus having the higher refresh, what would you choose?
Oh, I would choose 4K.
Easily. Okay.
Like I just don't want to discount the high refresh rate. It definitely has a purpose, but man, for what I like to do, I like 4K. I like having as much real estate.
See, I would say I care more about color accuracy.
Okay, well then you might be in luck because one of the big selling points of this is that it's been Pantone certified. And I will say there's been a couple other laptops like this in different ranges, like the Gigabyte Aero 15 that also has Pantone validation. And these screens, Just like that. Just like the video we did last time with the Lenovo ThinkPad P1 that had a calibrated screen, and it's just like, for creative professionals like us, for us, that really makes a big difference.
So I don't know a ton about Pantone, other than like, obviously the graphic designers love, like, they care about those colors. But as far as like the video world, it's not, I'm not 100% familiar with that. So it's like, I care about like, is it Rec 2020? Are we going into that HD? HDR levels, that's...
Yeah, no HDR, no Rec 2020. I will say that, these creative laptops are meant for a wide variety of content creators.
Yeah.
So not just video professionals, but it is Adobe RGB, so slightly wider than sRGB.
Yeah.
And like head to head on these two laptops, you can't really see it on video, but there is definitely a difference in the colors that are displayed.
Okay.
You're going to get more vibrant, more accurate colors on this one. So one of the things that I definitely have missed in this transition from gaming into content creation are some of the things that we saw in the workstation laptops. The first one that really hits me hard is an SD card. We don't shoot on red cameras. We don't need anything too crazy.
And even when we do a little bit of photography as well, we're shooting on SD cards.
Yeah, and it's really nice to be able to have that port. You just pop in an SD card, but most gaming laptops don't. So because this uses this same exact chassis, this is missing an SD card, and I truly missed it in my day-to-day workflow. Do I use an external thing? Of course, but when I have to rely on an external SD card reader,
it's nice.
Yeah, definitely a nice thing to have. But one of the bigger things is that this is missing some of the features that you get from the workstation laptops.
Yeah.
Now, how important that is depends on the person, but what are some of the things that we kind of missed out from the
So the other ones have like Xeon processors for one thing, error correct, which also means that then it has access to error correcting memory. But it had Quadros, which we definitely did not need.
Yeah, we did not need.
The laptops undergo a lot more testing, and so a lot of them have like certain mil-spec standards that they passed. And then I think just at that price point and the level of service, it's a different kind of relationship and contract you end up getting with those companies. They're like, if something goes wrong, they are going to bend over backwards because you are a different level of customer, and they want to make sure that you are taken care of. So
it's true.
One thing I do like that I didn't necessarily see on every laptop is that it has Ethernet.
Yeah. I mean, and full-size Ethernet, and full-size HDMI. I mean, the ports already on this version were pretty nice. Like
because it's a gaming, and so I think that's one of the good things that I feel like gaming is bringing over is that it's bringing some extra ports like that.
Exactly. One of the last major changes, which I don't know if it's partially marketing or what, but in the gaming laptop, this one has a turbo button, which sounds pretty cool, right? You hit the turbo button.
Give me that NOS.
Yeah, it provides a slight overclock, but then what it does is kicks the fans into maximum high gear. These fans get loud, as do a lot of gaming laptops. One of the selling points that Acer has on the Concept D7 is silent fans. They've been engineered with this OWL technology. That's definitely marketing speak.
Considering that it's in the same body, what really can they do that,
Yeah. I think, so under normal loads, I've had some slight things going on here and there. Like I said, the actual internals are a little different. But like under normal loads, the fans seem to get the same amount or get just as loud.
Yeah.
It's just that this one has the ability to go even louder and cool even better, where this one doesn't. Which, I don't know. I would say, I would want that ability if I'm really editing or really exporting something really heavy to be like, I don't care how loud it gets. I want it to maintain performance.
I could see that. I mean, I guess the question is how much more performance are you getting? Because, if you're doing games, you're probably wearing headphones, so like that kind of loudness doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you are doing editing, you probably are, but maybe not. But I think in general, dropping frames while you're playing a video game is different than, a render taking an extra minute.
Yeah.
It's like, it ruins the experience if you're dropping frames, right?
For sure, yeah.
But having an export that takes 20 minutes take 20 21 or 22 minutes. Does that really change much? Like, so, you know.
Yeah, and it's definitely one of the things I haven't had a chance to get really deep into the testing with, but I do want to check that out because for me, I think that's somewhere where I would like to have that option that's available here. You know, the idea of having it, you know, be as quiet as a library is not necessarily a selling point for me.
And can that turbo? How long can that turbo last? Can it just go
it stays.
Okay.
Yeah. You hit the button and it stays on until you turn it off.
I would say if you get at least a 10% increase in performance with that, then that would be a worthwhile. But if it's, you know, 5 or less, then I don't think it's a big deal.
Yeah, definitely something to look into. And I will also say that these laptops come pre-installed with the NVIDIA Studio drivers. But if you get GeForce Experience, you can change those on the fly. It doesn't matter. You can get the same drivers here as there. So, like the last point maybe I want to get on is that for creative professionals, I think one of the things they liked about getting gaming laptops is then when work is over, they get to play a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
But this feels like you can play fine.
Exactly. Yeah. So you know, but with the added benefit. So I think when you're gaming, then the trade-off is that you don't get that turbo mode, and you don't get the high refresh rate screen. When you're gaming, you have to take that 4K and kind of render it a lower resolution because the internals can't really push that hard. So you know. If you're gaming on the side and having fun with it, it'll still game. Don't get me wrong, you know, but it won't game as good as the gaming laptop.
I mean, whereas like when we were looking at the the mobile workstations, you kind of can't game.
Yeah, I mean
those
have quadros.
No,
not really made
it's
for
not
gaming.
meant for that at all.
It's not meant for that. So it is a nice benefit, but I think that is the trade-off.
Yeah.
It's actually a pretty smart way to say, hey, you know what? This is better at content creation, and this is better at gaming, but both can still do vice versa, but they're going to be lacking in certain ways. So I'm interested to test these further, to get more laptops in, like the Gigabyte Aero 15, and test those, because I really like this trend, and it's cool to see content creators like us have options that aren't up in the workstation class for what we do.
Definitely more affordable. So what's the kind of the price difference?
So that is the last thing, which you would think if they were configured the same, they should probably be pretty similar, and actually they are pretty close. So this if you get it with a 9750H and a 2080 is $2,700 in the US. This, with that same exact configuration, is $3,000. So, I think the 4K panel is probably going to cost a little more.
That's
the
fair.
Pantone certification is probably costing a little more. But who knows? I'm not quite sure why that little discrepancy.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you're in the ballpark.
Yeah.
You're in the ballpark. But either way, you're definitely paying more for the content.
I'm curious, which one would you go with? If you had to choose one.
With my limited time that I've had so far, I'm leaning towards this.
Yeah, I'd probably choose this one too.
Yeah, I think, without doing more in-depth testing, to make a final judgment, but from what I've used of this one so far, and I definitely did use this one a lot over the past couple months, this one's looking pretty nice. Is it worth that extra $300? I would say if I'm going to plunk down this kind of change anyway, that's not a huge amount of upcharge for it.
And if I'm gonna plunk down this much money, it's probably because this is for my work, the work that I do, and it's not for gaming and pleasure. And then it's like, this is primarily for video production, for content creation, and that needs to be the primary role.
Yeah. So I'll finish this off by saying we're going to continue to look at the best laptop options for video editing, because that's something that we are actually actively looking at.
Yeah.
And we'll continue to kind of update as the year goes on. Thank you, Dan, for coming and joining me.
Yeah.
And we will see you later.